How satisfied are you with your life in general? A little, a lot? If I give you a scale from 0 to 10, with 0 being the least and 10 the most, where will you rank yourself? What score will you give yourself? Now, I'm a well-being economist, and I think it's weird if I am interested in your life satisfaction. But it has been shown by researchers such as Ed Diener and Veenhoven and Richard Layard that asking a person how satisfied he is with his life is a very, very good measure of your life circumstances. As a well-being economist, I'm interested in measuring your well-being and asking you how satisfied you are with your life. I get a very good idea about your own evaluation of your life. Now, if we think about measuring, we need to measure well-being because very often that is the main aim of any government, is to maximize the well-being of people. Also, there's other benefits. If you have a very satisfied community or satisfied with their life, you find they are healthier, they are more productive, they are more interested in learning and getting extra skills, and very often it's a safer community. But if we think about how we measure it, that first question I asked you was, how satisfied are you with your life? When you answered it or thought about that question, what did you think about? If somebody asked me that question, I think about my relationships with my husband and my friends and my children. I think about the place I stay in. I think about safety. What came up first when you thought about that question? What did you think about? Was it about income and how much income I earned? Now, once again, researchers have seen that the first thing people think about is most often not income. It is about social relationships, your relationships with people, and that makes if you're satisfied with your life or not. All the other things count, but not as much. Now, the question is, if a government measures its well-being or its welfare, the index or measure they mostly quote is income. So they use gross national income. They calculate the income of all the people in the country and they add it. But that doesn't seem right. It's like when you have a fever or temperature and you jump onto a scale, it's the wrong measure. And if you measure the wrong things, you will never reach the goal because you are measuring income and not well-being. So how should we measure well-being? Now, actually, that has been used quite a while, a very recognized measure, exactly what I asked you. How satisfied are you with your life in general? Now, if we can ask this question to all the people in the country on a scale from 0 to 10, and we can average it, we can tell you how satisfied our country with their lives. And this is actually done. The source that we use is the Gallup World Poll, and this is published in the World Happiness Report annually. If you think of South Africa, we've got a happiness score of, or life satisfaction score of around about 5. If you think of the US, it's closer to 7. A country that's very satisfied with their life, have a high level of well-being, like Sweden, will be around about 7.3. Now, we have this measure. It's Gallup World Poll. But very important, this is a survey. What is a survey? So people go around and ask a certain group, Gallup, around about 1,000 people in a country, which is representative, and we get these responses. We ask this question, how satisfied are you with your life? And that's where we got the numbers from that I've just quoted. But there's a few problems with the survey. Number one, to actually collect that data is really, really costly. You need to go out to people and ask these questions. Number two, once you have actually gathered that information, the data needs to be cleaned, and very often we only get the information a year later, often 2 years later. That's old news, it's history. How can we take decisions on very old data? So is there other option? Yes, there is. Fourth industrial revolution made such a difference. We have access to big data. Big data, so we've got sources on the web. And we have machine learning, which we call natural language processing, where we can analyze this data. Now, we have been doing exactly that. We have developed an index which can measure well-being of people with a difference at almost real time. So as things happen, you can watch this index. The index is called the Gross National Happiness, and it's on a website which is called the grossnationalhappiness.today. And as things happen, you can see what's happening to the well-being of people. Now, how do we do it? We extract a live stream of tweets, and we use this machine learning to analyze the sentiment of each tweet. Now, the sentiment can be coded, is coded in either positive, negative, or neutral. Then we use a balance score. So we take the positives and the negatives, and if we deduct the one from the other and with a little bit of more calculations, we can see the trend. So if anything happens, we can see what is the mood or evaluative mood of a nation. Is it increasing? Is it decreasing? What is happening? And we have been, often we get different questions about it. Why Twitter? Well, the point is, we would have liked to use Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, but the privacy restrictions around those data sources are very, very strict. But with Twitter, it's public, so we can use Twitter. Then often they ask us, but not that many people have Twitter accounts, and it's not representative. Well, if you think of South Africa, with a population of around about 58 million, we've got 11 million Twitter accounts. Of those people, they tweet on average 60,000 tweets per day. Now put that together and you have a population or the number of observations per year is around about 22 million. Remember when I said about the survey, we had 1,000 observations. And if you, in statistics, you know the bigger the sample, the closer you can get to the truth because we are estimating. So a bigger sample will put you closer to what really is happening. And also, if we think about Twitter, there's other advantages. People that tweet, not just individuals, there's also businesses, bigger societies. So we get a sort of sample from different societies, parts of the community, which is really representative. We have been measuring the GNH since 2019. So running for a little bit more than 2 years at this stage. Initially, we only measured it for 3 countries, New Zealand, Australia, and South Africa. But lately we have extended this, and we're also measuring the gross national happiness for a few European countries. Furthermore, we only analyzed the sentiment initially, so the mood of the nation, but we also expanded that. And now we can measure the underlying emotions. We can pick up anger, fear, joy, anticipation, trust, so various of these emotions. Now we have been following this index, monitoring it day by day by day to see how well it reflects what happens in a society. That can be economics, politics, sport events, and to see how it reflects in this index. Just to mention a few examples, South Africans are sport crazy. Actually, soccer, rugby. But the event I would like to mention is the 2019 World Cup, Rugby World Cup. Now, I sat and I watched this game. The game started at 11 on this Saturday, the 2nd of November. But now I've got double interest here. I'm watching the game on the one side, and on the other hand, I've got this index on my phone and I'm watching it. And as the game progresses, and it becomes clear that the Springboks are going to win this game, you can see the index increasing. And by 1 o'clock, when the final whistle blew, and I looked at this index, it was on 7.9 on the scale from 0 to 10. Normally, South Africa's index is around about 6.3. This was the highest ever reported for the time being that we measured it. So it did capture that excitement of the nation. And another example, if we look at COVID and lockdown, And New Zealand, we saw on the day that lockdown was announced in New Zealand, this was on 23 March 2020, we monitored the emotions in New Zealand. And from the 23rd of March to the 24th of March, this changed tremendously. We saw that joy dropped, we saw anger increased, fear increased, and trust decreased. So you could see that reflection in the emotions almost immediately. Then this is normally post an event. So we can tell what happened to the sentiment and the emotions after the event. But can we also use it to predict, so in a predictive capacity? Yes, we saw the same thing. Not long ago, the ex-president of South Africa was sentenced to jail. This happened on a Wednesday in July. Many people became very, very angry. Other people started fearing for what will happen. When we looked at this index, we could see this. We could see how the mood in the nation, the evaluated mood, changed. We saw the fear, we saw the anger, they are all negative emotions. So this index started decreasing. Now let's say that the government did watch this index and they saw this. They can probably have predicted something is going to happen. This nation, the mood's going to explode. And that's exactly what happened. By Monday, we had riots, looting. Actually, 300 people lost their lives. There were tremendous losses, financial losses, business losses. Now, if the government saw this change and they followed what happened with the index, they would probably have been able to do something to prevent it, step up, restrict the deaths that occurred, restrict the losses. So this index can also be used in a predictive manner. Now, if we know all of this, number one, we know that we have to measure well-being. Otherwise, we will never know if we reach this goal of governments to maximize well-being. We know that surveys, yes, it's interesting. It gives us information, but it is very costly, and it is not. It's not when we need it. It's not timeous. So we need that information immediately. So is there a different solution? Yes, we do have a solution. We've already developed this index that measures real-time well-being. And we've seen that countries such as New Zealand, which is at this stage the leader in well-being and the measurement of well-being and a well-being budget, has actually adopted this measure as a statistical measure and part of their statistical data. Other countries should follow suit. They should do the same thing. They've got the source of information. It is absolutely essential because we can make a difference. We can improve the well-being of people. And if we use it as a predictive measure, we can save lives. The main thing is policymakers can have the edge. They can be the leaders in a global society if they use this index, if they monitor this index, and if they can see what happens to well-being in real time.